You just answered it for me.
I'm Jordan.
And I'm Tanisha.
Hi, I'm Jason.
Hi, I'm Joy.
Hi, I'm Pastor Matt.
And I'm Sarah.
And together,
We're going to answer your questions
About relationships.
How old were you when you started dating?
Oh, when I started actually going on dates, probably 15. But it was always, mom and dad had to know him and we didn't go far but yeah, probably 15.
so I really did not go on
I did date.
many dates, period, like in high school, with the exception of prom. That's the one maybe notable.
Tina.
Correct. That's maybe the one notable example in high school. I guess a couple of times in college, but none of it was very serious. I mean, this has really been the only serious relationship that I've ever been in. So,
I dated.
yeah. So I would say probably not till I was 17 or something, but it's not something that I ever did. So
I was 16.
I was probably 17, 18.
The first real girlfriend that I had, I think 19. Now I'm, dated in middle school, but it was just in the school. We never did go anywhere.
Yeah.
I think I went to the skating rink with a girl one time or something.
That's a big deal, Lynn.
Yeah, but I dated one girl in middle school and I didn't talk to her for 4 months and we were still together until she finally gave me a letter that said, "This isn't working out." And I was like, well, what was your first clue? But anyway, so I didn't really take it serious until I got out of high school. There was a reason for that. It wasn't that I didn't want to. I actually had a couple girls I had crushes on, throughout that time. I just didn't want to settle for somebody that wasn't doing, they were doing things that I didn't want to do. And I knew that if I got myself in those positions, it would be really, really hard for me not to fall into that. And so I tried really, really hard to keep myself out of it until I met somebody that was as devout, and believing those same things and holding to those standards. And then, I dated her. But outside of that, it wasn't worth it to me.
Pastor Matt and I do not have the same testimony. We tell people that God kept him from things, and God let me learn the hard way. When do I look back and see it all going wrong? Middle school. I dated a boy that was in high school, and I was in middle school, and that is when I began to let things go too far. And it will surprise you how quickly that will progress into you going way too far. But my bad habits in dating started when I was very young. I guess I was 13. I'm sure some of these questions will lead us to the rest of the story. If you dated other people before your spouse, what made you decide that they weren't the one?
I dated the same guy for 3 years. And I never, this is going to sound stupid because why did you waste your time? But I never thought I was going to marry him. But my mindset was different. I wasn't dating to get married. I was dating because I liked spending time with the person and we had fun. It was never, I thought, oh man, I'm just going to turn. And then when I got older, I didn't date unless I thought that's why I dated Jordan more than once, because at that point it was I'm not going to date unless I think this can go somewhere because it's a waste of my time. That's kind of what I thought. But yeah, I think I don't know how to say there's one particular thing. I think sometimes it's your mindset, if you're ready for that, because it's a very different, dating in high school is not always the same as dating because you think, oh man, I could see myself married. It's not the same. At least I don't think so.
yeah, I never, again going back to
He was a hermit.
previous comments, exactly. I was a hermit. I never really had and I guess because maybe I looked at the different people I had at least had engaged with to some degree, and never saw them as serious spouse potential. So yeah,
I did not date in college because I never found anyone worth my time.
yeah.
I had other things to do.
The relationship didn't last.
Yeah. Relationship didn't last.
That's kind of a hard question. The hardest is probably the one girl I dated for 5 years. we had actually dated for 3 years, and then we had broke up, and then that's when I dated the other girl, was for 2 years, and then me and the first girl got back together when she got out of vet school and come home from Auburn, and we dated for 2 more years, and by that time I was already a pastor. She didn't want anything to do with the ministry because her father was a pastor, and she knew how hard it was, and she just wasn't interested in that, and so I knew it wasn't right. And the same thing was true with the girl I dated in between those 2 runs. She didn't really want to be involved in it, wanted to do her own thing, and so God just made it known. I don't know how else really to. He just made it known.
Well, for me, this goes back to the question I just answered before, because those bad habits started when I was very, very young, and I carried those into my young adulthood. And I have been married once before I was saved. I thought that I was, but again, I was very deceived, even though I had went to church regularly. Comparing our 2 marriages, how did I know finally that that person wasn't the one when I had gotten saved after I had married my first husband, and I was getting closer to Jesus. My life was changing. My want-tos were changing. I didn't want to watch the same kind of mess on TV. I didn't want to listen to the same kind of music. I didn't talk the same, and I was being sanctified. We talked about that this morning in the sermon. I was being sanctified by my Lord and Savior, and I was changing. And the person who I was married to kind of pretended along those lines for a little while, but when everything was said and done, he wanted nothing to do with the life that I have to live for the Lord, or that I can't help but live for the Lord, because he changes me. And I can look back on relationships even before that one and realize that those warning signs were always there, but I continually ignored them. I became closer to Jesus and to God, and that person didn't want anything to do with it, and so it ultimately ended in divorce. But God uses all things for the glory of those who love him and are called, or the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. And so he took that mess that I was in because of my own choosing and my own decisions, and he has given me a wonderful life now. Were you a Christian when you started dating your future spouse?
Yes.
It was kind of like, I don't want to say mandatory, but it was like real high on the list. Because, not that I would have been open to dating someone who wasn't already a Christian, and I think the word Christian is used wrong sometimes, but who already had the relationship with Christ. But it definitely was a benefit because you already have that spiritual help, where if the person doesn't yet have their relationship, you're kind of carrying the weight and hoping that one day they'll want to go to church like you, and it just makes things trickier. I would not have, Jordan probably wouldn't have done the same, I would not have completely shut myself off to someone who was still questioning, but it definitely made it easier to maintain my own faith, knowing that he shared the same ish faith.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started dating her, early 20s, that was like a deal breaker for me. As I continue to live life, and I find myself constantly, and I guess this wisdom comes with age. You start to see just imperfections and how people come from all walks of life, but you're talking about this being your spouse, so you want them to have a good, strong foundation with Christ. And if not, it is hard for the one partner that is committed, and especially you go to church and your spouse isn't there, and it really takes some determination to be committed. So
I was saved when we started dating, and you had been saved for a long time.
Yeah, I got saved when I was 8. So.
Yeah. I was 28. I had thought I'd gotten saved when I was young because I had an experience at school. I went to a private Christian school one time, and somebody said to me, "Say this prayer and you'll be saved." And so I thought that's what saved me. But I was never any different after that prayer. And if you're not different, even though you say, oh, Jesus is Lord, well, you can say that all day long, but if you don't allow him to take over your life and allow him to change you, then you're not his. Anyway, that's a free little Bible lesson. That's extra. So,
How did you meet your spouse?
We met in church. Our home church is the same, and actually we knew each other, but we didn't know each other well until you had already took the youth group and were working with the youth, and I came back from Murray State and from living with my dad and moved back to Muhlenberg County, and so I started helping you with the youth and actually working under you as you were the youth director, and that's when we really started to get to know each other and working together and whatnot. Friendship is really important.
Yes.
I can't stress that enough. The foundation that you have in a friendship, it's much easier to move that into something that is more permanent than just off the fly.
To a friend.
Yeah, so we met online. Christian Mingle, believe it or not, was living in southeastern Illinois. She was in Evansville, still teaching at Fairlawn where she is now. And yeah, that's how we met. I guess the better question is, why did we pick that site? She may have, I think...
It had the word Christian in the title, so somehow I convinced myself it was less creepy.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, originally I had done, what's the one called?
The Harmony.
Yeah, but whoa, way too expensive.
I know.
That's
honestly what
way too expensive, and so then I was like,
Match was too.
that was too me. So I did my Christian Mingle profile, but I hadn't paid because I kind of a little bit screwed over by eHarmony, if we're honest. And I was like, dang it, I'm so skeptical now. And so I wasn't going to pay, and I just created my profile, and I remember it in the screen in the top box, like the thought bubble thing, and there's this one, and it just kept like blinking like this, but it wouldn't let me open it unless I subscribed, of course, and I was like, whatever. So I ignored it for a few days, and then finally I paid literally just so I could click on this little one that was bouncing in the corner, and it was Jordan, and it's a good thing I did because his profile was like expiring, is that right? In a few weeks.
Yeah, I decided that because I had been on the site, I guess, for I don't know, a month or two, and I was gonna test drive, Christian Mingle and see if it was for me or not, and I was like, our window is I'm gonna do this for however long, I don't remember, and then I'm just gonna move on. And I have no idea, if you ask me now, I'm so glad that we met when we did, because I just feel like I'm falling further and further behind on the technology and, the dating apps that are out there now, like Tinder. I would just be very uncomfortable, I know. And so I don't know what I would do if it was 2020 and I'm having to meet my spouse, but that's how we met, and, it's still kind of phenomenal that we're here, to be honest, 6-7 years later. So first date, I pick her up, we go to IHOP.
I'm still not convinced he's not going to murder me. So I had to do something in public because could have been a strangler, I didn't know.